Hi friends, let us see what are the different types of sexual reproduction that are observed in plants. There are three basic types of sexual reproduction observed in plants. One is isogamy, second one is anisogamy, and third one is oogamy. Let us see how these three are different from each other. Isogamy, which is otherwise called as homogamy. Iso or homo, that means same type. As we are aware of the fact that in sexual reproduction there is fusion of two gametes, one is male and the other one is female. In this type of fusion, the organism produces two gametes, but both the gametes are very much similar in morphology. That means you cannot differentiate which is male and which is female. Both are similar in their size and shape. Then how are they different from each other? They are different from each other only in terms of physiology. And because they have flagellum, both are motile in nature, right? So, isogamy is the kind of fusion in which both the male and female gametes are similar in terms of their morphology, that is their size and shape, but they differ only in terms of their physiology. In this case, we cannot distinguish which is a male and which is a female. Such kind of organisms are called as homogametic, and you can find this isogametic fusion in algae, fungi and lower plants. Example, cladophora. Now, coming to the second type, anisogamy. Anisogamy is otherwise called as heterogamy. Why are we calling it as heterogamy? Because hetero means different. That means here the gametes that are involved in fusion are dissimilar in size. That is, you can differentiate which is male and which is female. But depending on whether the gametes are motile or non-motile, they are of three types of anisogamy. Anisogamy is observed in certain fungi, higher vertebrates and vertebrates. And those organisms that are known to produce two dissimilar gametes are called as heterogametic, right? So, here the organism produces the male and the female gametes. Both the male and female gametes are dissimilar, they are not identical to each other in terms of their morphology as well as physiology. Both the gametes can be motile or non-motile. This kind of fusion is seen in some fungi, higher invertebrates and vertebrates. And the organisms that produce such dissimilar gametes are otherwise called as heterogametic in nature. Anisogamy is of three types again, as you can see. The large, in general, the female is large and the male is small. The male gamete is smaller and the female is large in size. Now, you can see here in case A, both the large female and the small male both are motile in nature, and in the second case the large female is non-motile and the small male is motile. In the third case, both the large female and the small male gamete both are non-motile. So, depending on their motility, anisogamy is further classified into three types. So, whatever it is, the general fact is that the female gamete is always larger and the male gamete is always smaller in size. Now, coming to the third type, oogamy. Oogamy is also type of heterogamy in which the female gamete is essentially large and non-motile. Female gamete is large and non-motile, and the male gamete is essentially small and motile. So, oogamy is also a kind of anisogamy Here the female is essentially large and non-motile, but the male is smaller and motile. Oogamy is the most common type of sexual reproduction observed in the nature. The female gamete is usually called as the egg cell or the ovum, and the male is called as the sperm or anthrozoid. Such oogamy is seen in higher algae like volvox and in plants like bryophytes, ferns, that is pteridophytes, and gymnosperms. Now, based on this information, let us identify the gametes that are given here. So, in case A, you can see both the gametes are similar in their size and shape. So, this is homogametic in nature. Homogametic, right? This is an example of isogametes of Cladophora. So, Cladophora is homogametic in nature, it produces isogametes, that means they are similar in terms of the morphology. Now, example 2, that is B. Here you can see one large non-motile and a small motile. So, whenever you come across this one large and one small, you can distinguish between the male and the female, they are not no way similar to each other. So, this is heterogametic, isn't it? Now, in this heterogametic, the large non-motile is the ovum, the female gamete, and the small motile is the sperm. In case case B, you can see it is an example of another variety of algae called fucus. So, A is also an example of algae, B is also an example of algae, but in A, Cladophora is homogametic and in B, fucus is heterogametic in nature. And if you take the case C, this is an example of oogamy in humans. Here you have the large non-motile ovum or the egg, which is non-motile, and the small motile sperm, otherwise called as anthrozoid, right. So, this is how this diagram you can identify them very easily.